Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Starring Clark Gregg, Ming-Na Wen, Chloe Bennett, Elizabeth Henstridge, Henry Simmons, Natalia Cordova-Buckley, Jeff Ward.
So honestly, this is the first episode of the season that I feel kind of conflicted on. Like, on the one hand, it had multiple scenes that were either extremely important and gave us some super important answers, or they were just really great scenes in their own right. But on the other hand, last episode set up some really great and interesting places to go, and this episode just didn't really capitalize on them, or they just went the complete opposite direction. But even though I wasn't a fan of some of the changes, at least it meant I was constantly guessing what was coming next and I couldn't really predict anything. But probably the biggest reveal of the episode is a legitimate answer on what's happening with Jemma and Fitz, but it was in such a vague way that I'm either not entirely convinced this is a 100% accurate answer, or that they're straight up not telling the truth. And I think this mainly because we still have no idea how long Jemma and Fitz have been separated, and that seems like something that should have been a part of this reveal. Also, one of the biggest theories we've had about when we see Fitz is that he'll be really old, and that'll showcase how long the characters have actually been separated. But this hasn't actually been debunked yet, especially with all of this new information we got in this episode. It still is a theory out there, but I'm starting to think Fitz will probably still look similar to his usual self, or maybe only a little bit older when we do see him. But I actually predicted some things right about this. I was wrong about a bunch of stuff, but in one of my prior videos I said that Fitz could be off on a mission integral to defeating the Chronicoms, and it's just too dangerous for the others to know where he is. But assuming Jemma is telling the truth, it means this was true. And I also guessed the thing in Gemma's neck was likely to help her with her memories, which was also kind of true. But speaking of this stuff, I love the scene where Deke thinks Enoch is a traitor and he attacks him, and I also don't really get why Jemma was annoyed about this, because that was a completely rational thing for Deke to do given all the information he had about the situation. And Jemma also should have been truthful with the team about what's going on with her. We don't actually know if she did tell the team at the end, but it's kind of implied that the only people who've been told so far about this is Deke and Enoch. But maybe Deke will tell Mac in the next episode since we know they're together. But we also had some pretty integral stuff with both May and Coulson, and I love the scene in the interrogation room where Coulson slightly pushes May to the point where we see the original version of her coming true. And that shows itself again when she says towards the end of the episode that Coulson always comes back. I kind of hope this is setting up May to being able to balance her powers and have emotions of her own, as well as being able to feel other people's emotions, kind of like the Betazoids from Star Trek, where they're empaths but they also have their own emotions as well. I also kind of hope we get to this point sooner than later, because as cool of a storyline as this is, I'm not kind of happy, I guess, that it's being put in the final season. I kind of want May to be her usual self for most of the final season. But Coulson also had one of the best scenes in the entire season when he monologues to Sybil about how dying is kind of my superpower, which that was just an amazing scene. But Mac also had a lot to do, and with how the episode ended, I wouldn't be surprised if next episode focuses solely on him and Deke in a new time. I haven't watched any promos, so I'm not entirely sure what time they're going to, or if this episode will just focus on the two of them, but I'd be extremely down for that, especially since the episodes that focus on one or two characters have actually ended up being some of the standouts of the entire show. Like Season 3's 4,722 hours focused on Jemma being stranded on Maveth, and that's a huge fan favourite. Season 5's Rewind was focused on Hunter and Fitz, that was also a huge favourite, and Season 6's Inescapable being focused on Fitz and Simmons. So the prospect of another one of those kind of episodes is pretty exciting. And also the fight in the Quinjet against Max Chronicom's parents was insane. It was really emotional too. I loved when, even though you could see that Chronicom version of his mother was trying to get through to him, he still knew he had to push her out, which was a great scene for Mac. But the part of the episode I'm kind of conflicted on comes down to Sousa and Daisy, and when they are being held by Nathaniel Malik. Now, this is weird because I loved a lot of what they did actually do here. Like, for example, Nathaniel's actor was pretty fantastic, and Daniel finally telling his story of how he got hit in the war was great. I can't remember how much of that story we got in Agent Carter, but I feel like we only kind of got the extreme basics, just kind of bullet points of what happened. We didn't really get an in-depth explanation of it. But the whole thing we got here was great, and I love that Daisy is kind of going to be the reason that Sousa decides to stick around for a bit. When he was talking about how his friend, I forget his friend's name, who carried him back out of the front lines in the war, the way he was explaining that, I was really worried that meant he was going to sacrifice himself to save Daisy or something like that. So I feel like every episode I'm worried that Sousa's going to die or something. But the end of last episode also had Malik get in touch with Daniel Whitehall, and this is the bit of the episode and last episode that I'm a little bit frustrated about now. So naturally, when he got in touch with Daniel Whitehall or Reinhardt, most people, myself included, assumed that meant we'd see Whitehall in this episode. But no, that kind of ended up just being a small tie-in so that they could have an explanation for why Malik wanted an Inhuman and wanted powers so bad. The story also ended up starting and ending in this episode, which means it was kind of just filler to get Daniel and Daisy to bond, or for Daniel to tell his story. I guess it feels like they just knew that they couldn't really have Daisy and Sousa involved in the main stuff this episode because they would have gotten out of it too easily. They need somewhere for Daisy and Daniel to go, and hey, we've got a Malik, we could use that as a part of the episode. Like as soon as Malik gets his powers, he ends up killing himself, so that was a cool scene. I like how, immediately how he got his powers, he didn't know how to use them and he ended up killing himself because of it. But did we really need 10 minutes of this episode devoted to that, when episode 5 kind of implied we'd get something extremely different and more exciting with it? Like, it was still enjoyable for sure, but I just don't think they should have went where they went with it. But also a quick shout out to the soundtrack, which was great this time around as well. I mean, it's always great, but this is probably the first usual S.H.I.E.L.D. soundtrack of the season, or the first kind of even usual S.H.I.E.L.D. episode of the season, especially since, we've had pretty unique title cards for every episode this season. But this one just was the title card from Season 5. It wasn't even the title card from Season 6, it was straight up the title card for Season 5, which was pretty cool. But every other episode so far has been focused on a new time or a new setting, so with all of that considered, especially since, with the noir episode, this entire soundtrack in this episode was very noir based. But, I kind of thought that every episode would have a soundtrack done in a different style because of that, but this is the first episode where the time period wasn't important. The time period kind of just took a background seat to the main part of the episode, so that meant that the usual S.H.I.E.L.D. soundtrack could shine through, and it also means that I really have no idea where we're going to go next, whether we're going to keep doing time-focused episodes, or from now on it's going to be way more character-focused and story-focused going forward. But yeah, I have a couple issues with this episode, but overall I still really enjoyed it. It was still really good. Probably still preferred episode 4 and 5 over this one, but this is still a good episode. But what did you think of the episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? And thank you very much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and all of that. And I hope you have an awesome day.